Jake Morrison felt the transport shuttle slow down as it approached the massive space station. He pressed his face against the small window and saw Zenith Academy for the first time. The building was huge, floating in the darkness of space like a glowing jewel. Soft blue and green lights covered its surface, and strange towers stretched out in directions that seemed to ignore normal physics. Behind it, a beautiful green and blue planet called Harmonia Prime sparkled in the light of a distant sun. The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. Jake grabbed his old military duffel bag and stood up. He was tall for a human, about 6 feet, with short brown hair and an easy smile. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a blue shirt. Nothing fancy. The other passengers on the shuttle, all aliens of species he had never seen before, moved away from him quickly. They pressed themselves against the far walls, their eyes wide and their breathing fast. Jake did not understand why they looked so scared. He smiled at them and said hello, but they only moved further away. One small creature that looked like a walking pile of purple fur actually ran to the bathroom and locked the door. Jake shrugged and walked off the shuttle alone. The docking bay was clean and bright. The floors were made of some kind of smooth white material that seemed to glow from within. The air smelled sweet, like flowers Jake could not name. Music played softly from hidden speakers, gentle sounds that reminded him of wind chimes. Everything felt designed for comfort and peace. A floating screen appeared in front of Jake's face, making him jump back. Words scrolled across it in English, welcoming him to Zenith Academy and directing him to the registration office. The screen floated beside him as he walked, like a helpful ghost. The hallways were full of students. Jake saw beings of every shape and size imaginable. There were tall, thin creatures that looked almost like walking plants, their skin see-through enough that he could see green fluid moving inside them. Small, furry things scurried along the floor, talking to each other in high-pitched voices. Floating balls of colored gas drifted past, held together by some kind of force field that crackled with energy. Things with too many legs, things with no legs at all, things that hurt his eyes to look at because their bodies seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Every single one of them stopped and stared when Jake walked past. Conversations died. Students backed against the walls. Some turned and ran in the opposite direction. Jake heard whispers following him, words in languages he did not know. But the fear in those voices was universal. The registration office was run by a being named Cora. She looked like a giant praying mantis made of clear crystal. Light bent and scattered through her body, creating tiny rainbows on the walls. She clicked her mouth parts together in what Jake hoped was a greeting and not a threat. "Jake Morrison, human, from planet Earth," Cora said. Her voice came from a small device on her desk, translating her sounds into English. "Welcome to Zenith Academy. You are our first human student." "Thank you, ma'am," Jake said. "I am really happy to be here." Cora's crystal body seemed to shiver. "Yes. Well, let me explain some rules. The Academy operates on galactic standard gravity, which is 0.8 of your Earth gravity. Please be careful when moving. What feels normal to you may be too fast or too strong for other students." Jake nodded, not really understanding what she meant. He had read that most aliens came from worlds with less gravity than Earth. But it did not seem like a big deal to him. Cora gave him a room assignment and a class schedule loaded onto a small data pad. She also gave him a medical band to wear on his wrist. "This monitors your vital signs and will alert medical staff if you are injured or sick," she explained. "I do not get sick much," Jake said. "Yes, we read that in your file. Humans have very aggressive immune systems." Cora made a sound like grinding glass. "Your room is in Tower 7. Level 12. Your roommate is a Viridian named Zix. He has been informed about your arrival." Jake thanked her and followed the floating screen's directions to his room. The walk took him through more hallways filled with staring students, across a beautiful garden area where plants grew in spirals toward artificial sunlight, and up a gravity lift that made his stomach flip. His room was nice. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, and a large window showing the stars outside. One side of the room was decorated with glowing plants that pulsed with soft light. The other side, his side, was empty. His roommate Zeeks was waiting. The Viridian was about Jake's height, but incredibly thin, like a person made of sticks. His skin was pale green and slightly transparent. Jake could see things moving under the skin, probably organs or blood vessels. Zeeks had large eyes, no nose that Jake could see, and a small mouth. He wore flowing robes that seemed to float around his body. "Hello," Jake said, putting out his hand for a handshake. "I am Jake. Nice to meet you." Zeeks looked at Jake's hand like it was a weapon. He pressed himself against the far wall. "Greetings, human Jake. I am Zeeks of Viridia. I welcome you to our shared living space." Jake lowered his hand, confused by Zeeks's reaction. "Are you okay? You look scared." "I am not scared," Zeeks lied. His voice shook. "I am simply being cautious. Your species is new to the Galactic Council. We do not know much about you." "Well, I am pretty normal," Jake said with a laugh. He swung his duffel bag off his shoulder and tossed it onto his bed. The bag hit the mattress with a heavy thud that made the whole bed frame shake. Zeeks made a sound like a gasp and jumped backward. His skin changed color, going from pale green to almost white. Jake did not notice. He unzipped his bag and started pulling out his stuff. Some books, paper books because he liked the feel of them. Clothes folded in neat military squares. A photo of his family back on Earth. A music player with his favorite songs. A box of protein bars because he was not sure if the cafeteria food would fill him up. He picked up the whole stack of books with one hand and put them on his desk. Behind him, Zeeks made another gasping sound. Jake woke up early on his first day of classes. The artificial sun outside his window was just starting to brighten, creating a fake dawn. Zeeks's bed was empty. His roommate had not come back last night. Jake felt a bit hurt by that but tried not to think about it too much. He got ready quickly, taking a shower in the small bathroom attached to their room. The water pressure was weak compared to Earth showers, barely more than a mist. The soap smelled like flowers and did not foam at all. Jake missed his normal soap from home. After getting dressed, Jake grabbed his datapad and checked his schedule. His first class was Galactic Biology with Professor Nira. The classroom was in the science tower. A short walk from his dormitory, he left early, wanting to make a good impression. The hallways were more crowded now, filled with students heading to their morning classes. Jake noticed the same thing as yesterday. Everyone stared. Everyone moved away. A group of small, furry creatures saw him coming and actually climbed the walls to get out of his path, using little claws he had not noticed before. Their fear smelled sharp and sour in the recycled air. Jake tried smiling and waving, but that only made things worse. Students rushed away even faster. One floating gas being popped its containment field in panic and had to be helped by friends to reinflate it. Jake stopped trying to be friendly and just walked with his head down. The science tower was beautiful. The walls were covered with displays showing different planets and their ecosystems. Jake saw worlds of ice, worlds of fire, worlds covered in oceans deeper than Earth's. Each one was labeled with information about gravity, atmosphere, temperature, and native life forms. He found his classroom and walked in. It was a large circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central teaching platform. Most of the seats were already filled. When Jake entered, every conversation stopped. The silence was so complete that Jake could hear the hum of the air recyclers. "Hello," Jake said to the room. Nobody answered. He found an empty seat near the back and sat down. The students nearest to him immediately got up and moved to different seats. Within seconds, there was a circle of empty chairs around Jake, like he carried some invisible disease. Professor Nira entered the classroom a few minutes later. She was a Keplan, one of the small, furry species Jake had seen around campus. She was only about 2 feet tall. With soft gray fur and huge black eyes, she wore tiny glasses perched on her small nose and carried a datapad that seemed too big for her little hands. "Good morning, students," Professor Nira said. Her voice was high and squeaky but clear. "Welcome to Galactic Biology. Today we begin our study of the diverse worlds that birthed the species of the Galactic Council." She tapped her datapad and a hologram appeared above the teaching platform. It showed a beautiful blue and green planet, covered with white clouds. "This is Viridia, homeworld of the Viridians," Professor Nira said. "Low gravity at 0.6 standard. Thin atmosphere, rich in nitrogen and low in oxygen. Calm weather patterns. No tectonic activity. Very few predator species. It is classified as a Class 2 paradise world." The Viridian students in class made proud sounds. Jake thought about Zix and wondered where he had spent the night. Professor Nira continued through several more planets. Each one was labeled as a Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 world. She explained that these ratings measured how dangerous a planet was to life. Class 1 meant almost perfect conditions. Class 3 meant some challenges but still relatively safe. "Now," Professor Nira said, her voice becoming serious, "we come to a very special case. A world that has only recently joined our council. A world that has challenged everything we thought we knew about the limits of planetary habitability." The hologram changed. Jake's heart jumped. He recognized the planet immediately. "Earth. His home. This is Earth," Professor Nira said quietly. "Homeworld of the humans. It is classified as a Class 12 death world." The classroom erupted in whispers. Several students turned to look at Jake with expressions that mixed fear and fascination. Professor Nira continued, reading data from her pad. "Earth has a gravity of 1 standard, making it one of the heaviest inhabited worlds known. Its atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, an extremely high oxidative environment that would be toxic to most species. The planet experiences violent weather patterns, including hurricanes, tornadoes, and electrical storms of incredible power." Images appeared in the hologram: a hurricane seen from space, spinning with deadly force, a tornado tearing across flat land, lightning splitting the sky. "Earth has active tectonic plates," Professor Nira went on. "This causes frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The planet has experienced multiple mass extinction events, yet life continues to flourish. It is covered with predatory species of remarkable efficiency. Even the plant life has evolved defensive toxins and physical weapons." More images: a great white shark showing rows of teeth, a lion taking down prey, a Venus flytrap snapping shut, a poison dart frog, tiny and bright with warning colors. "The microbial life is extremely aggressive," Professor Nira said. "Human immune systems had to evolve to be incredibly strong just to survive childhood. The infant mortality rate before their medical technology was almost 50%. Jake shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with everyone staring at him. This was all true. But it sounded so much worse when listed out like this. A Viridian student named Lysa raised her hand. She was sitting as far from Jake as possible. "Professor Nira, there must be an error in the data. No species could evolve intelligence on a Class 12 death world. The energy required just to survive would prevent the development of complex thinking. The data has been verified many times," Professor Nira said. Her fur was standing up, making her look twice as big. "Earth is the most hostile habitable world currently in the Council. The humans evolved not just intelligence but also remarkable physical capabilities to survive there." Another student, a floating aerolite named Krios, spoke up. His voice came from a speaker on his containment field. "What kind of physical capabilities?" Professor Nira looked uncomfortable. She glanced at Jake, then away. "Perhaps we should move on to the next topic." "Please, Professor," said another student. "We want to understand." Professor Nira sighed, a sound like wind through grass. "Very well. Humans have a muscle structure designed for a high-gravity environment. They are approximately 3 to 10 times stronger than most council species of similar size. Their reaction time is nearly twice as fast as the galactic average. They have incredible endurance and can run for hours without stopping. A hunting technique called persistence hunting." The classroom was completely silent now. Every eye was on Jake. "Their bones are incredibly dense to handle their gravity," Professor Nira continued. "Their skin is thick and resistant to damage. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to most species. They can survive temperature ranges that would kill most of us. They can eat foods that contain toxins and poisons that their bodies simply filter out. Jake felt his face getting hot. He wanted to say something, to explain that it was not as dramatic as it sounded, but his voice would not work. Most remarkably, Professor Nira said softly, humans are persistently optimistic. Despite living on a world that constantly tries to kill them, they developed art, music, philosophy, and compassion. They bonded together in social groups and learned to care for their weak and injured. They are perhaps the most contradictory species we have ever encountered. Incredibly dangerous, yet choosing to be kind. A long silence filled the room. Then a brave student asked, "Are humans predators?" "Yes," Professor Nira said. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters and opportunistic omnivores. They have forward-facing eyes for tracking prey, and their teeth include both grinding molars and tearing canines." Jake opened his mouth without thinking, then closed it quickly. But not before several students saw his teeth. A Kepler in the front row fainted and had to be carried out by friends. The rest of the class passed in a blur. Professor Nira tried to move on to other topics, but nobody could focus. They all kept looking at Jake, this creature from a nightmare world, sitting calmly in their classroom like he belonged there. When class finally ended, students rushed out so fast there was almost a traffic jam at the door. Jake waited until the room was empty before standing up. Professor Nira was still at her teaching platform, organizing her datapad. The cafeteria was enormous, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch up forever. Hundreds of tables filled the space, and food stations lined the walls, each one serving cuisine from different worlds. The smell was strange, a mix of sweet and sour, and things Jake could not identify. His stomach rumbled loudly. Jake got in line at the nearest food station. The student in front of him, a small blue creature with 6 arms, heard his stomach growl and dropped its tray in terror before running away. Jake picked up the tray and set it on a return shelf, confused and sad. The food at the station looked weird. Nothing resembled anything from Earth. There were glowing cubes that jiggled like gelatin, flat purple sheets that might be bread, or might be something else entirely. A bubbling liquid in shades of green that smelled like mint and copper. Jake grabbed a tray and took small portions of several things, hoping at least something would be edible. Then he remembered the protein bars in his room, and the apple he had brought from Earth's supplies, kept fresh in special storage. He left his alien food on the tray and went back to his dorm room quickly. He grabbed an apple and 2 protein bars, then returned to the cafeteria. He found an empty table in the corner and sat down. The apple was perfect, red and shiny. Jake bit into it with a loud crack that echoed through the cafeteria. The sound cut through conversations like a knife. Heads turned. Students stared. Jake chewed, enjoying the familiar taste of home. A few brave students approached his table. There was Krios, the aerolite from biology class, floating in his containment field. Next to him was a Kepler named Pip, small and gray with nervous energy. Lysa the Viridian came too, along with 2 others Jake did not recognize. "May we sit with you?" Lysa asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Sure," Jake said, smiling. "I would like that." They sat down, but they kept their distance. Chairs pulled back from the table. They watched Jake eat his apple like he was performing surgery. "What is that?" Pip asked, pointing at the apple. "An apple. It is a fruit from Earth," Jake said between bites. Pip pulled out a small scanner and pointed it at the apple. His eyes went huge. "That contains cyanogenic glycosides. That is a poison compound." Jake laughed. "Only in the seeds, and you would have to eat a lot of them. The fruit part is safe." The students stared at him. "You eat plants that contain poison?" Lysa whispered. "Well, yeah. Lots of Earth foods have trace toxins. Almonds have cyanide. Potatoes have solanine. Tomatoes have tomatine. Nutmeg is a hallucinogen if you eat too much. Chocolate has theobromine. Our bodies just filter it out." "Your bodies just filter out poison," Krios repeated slowly, "as a normal function." "Sure," Jake said. He took another bite of his apple. Several students looked away, unable to watch. "What are you drinking?" Pip asked, looking at Jake's water bottle. Water. Plain water. From Earth? Yeah, from Earth. Pip scanned it. The mineral content is very high, and there are trace amounts of chlorine used for purification. Quote, "That is normal tap water," Jake said. "You drink chlorine?" Lysa said faintly. "A tiny bit. It kills bacteria." The students looked at each other. None of them were eating their own food anymore. They just watched Jake finish his apple and start on a protein bar. "What is that?" Pip asked about the protein bar. Jake read the wrapper. "Peanut butter and chocolate-flavored protein bar. It has 20 grams of protein." "What is protein?" another student asked. "Nutrients. From food. This has proteins from whey, which comes from milk, which comes from cows." "What is a cow?" Lisa asked. Jake thought about how to explain. "A big animal. About 1,500 pounds. We domesticated them thousands of years ago. We drink their milk and eat their meat." The silence that followed was very long. "You drink the bodily fluids of another species?" Krios said. "When you say it like that, it sounds weird," Jake admitted. "But, yeah. Milk. It is good for you. And you eat their flesh," Pip added. "Beef. Yeah, it is tasty." 3 students got up and left the table. They looked sick. Lysa stayed, though her transparent skin had gone very pale. "On Earth, do humans eat meat regularly?" she asked. "Most do. We are omnivores. We eat plants and animals both." "You are predators," Lisa said softly. "True predators. I guess, yeah. But we also eat a lot of vegetables and fruit and grains." The rest of lunch was quiet. Word spread quickly through the cafeteria about what Jake had said. By the time lunch ended, every student knew that humans drank poison, ate toxic plants, and consumed the flesh of animals. Jake's reputation as a terrifying Deathworlder was growing. After lunch, Jake had physical education class. He walked to the gymnasium with a sense of dread. Students gave him an even wider space now. Some actually left the hallway when they saw him coming. The gymnasium was massive. It had different sections with different gravity settings. There were climbing walls that changed shape, obstacle courses that moved and shifted, running tracks that curved in impossible ways. Coach Tarn stood in the center, a being from a medium gravity world who looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. "Welcome, students," Coach Tarn said. His voice was deep and strong. "Today we do fitness assessments. Everyone will complete 3 tasks: running, climbing, and lifting. Do your best." The other students went first. Jake watched as they struggled through what seemed like simple tasks. A Viridian ran 400 meters in about 8 minutes, breathing hard by the end. A Kepler climbed a 10-meter wall in 5 minutes, using all 4 limbs and stopping twice to rest. An aerolite lifted a 30-kilogram weight with its containment field, the effort making the field flicker and spark. Everyone clapped politely for each performance. The students were trying hard, pushing themselves. Jake felt bad for them. These tasks that seemed so easy to him were clearly very difficult for them. "Jake Morrison," Coach Tarn called. "Your turn." Jake stood up and walked to the running track. He felt all eyes on him. The whispers started immediately. "Begin," Coach Tarn said, activating his timer. Jake started jogging. Not running, just a comfortable jog like he might do in the morning back home. His feet hit the track in an easy rhythm. The lower gravity made him feel light, almost like he was floating. He completed the 400 meters in just under a minute. He stopped and turned back to Coach Tarn. "Should I go again? Run faster?" Coach Tarn was staring at his timer. He hit it twice, like it was broken. "No. That is sufficient." The other students were silent. Several had backed away from the track. Next was the climbing wall. Jake approached it and looked up. It was 10 meters tall, with handholds and footholds of various sizes. He had done rock climbing back on Earth. This looked easier. He started climbing. His fingers found holds easily. His arms pulled his body up without strain. The lower gravity made it feel almost effortless. He reached the top in maybe 15 seconds, rang the bell at the summit, and climbed back down. When his feet hit the ground, he looked around. Half the students had left the gymnasium. The other half were pressed against the far wall. Coach Tarn's face was unreadable. "Final test," Coach Tarn said. His voice sounded strange. Lifting, he pointed to a standard weight on the floor. It was the same 30-kilogram weight the other students had struggled with. Jake walked over to it, bent down, and picked it up with one hand. He lifted it over his head easily. "Is this it?" Jake asked. "Should I lift something heavier?" A Viridian student made a sound like a scream and ran from the gymnasium. Others followed. Within seconds, only a handful of brave students remained, and even they looked ready to run. Coach Tarn's translator made crackling sounds as he tried to speak. Finally, he managed, "Class dismissed. Everyone out. Now." The remaining students did not need to be told twice. They fled. Jake stood there alone, still holding the weight above his head. "Did I do something wrong?" Coach Tarn approached him slowly, carefully. "Put the weight down, Jake." Jake set it down gently. "How much can you lift?" Coach Tarn asked. "Your maximum." "I do not know exactly. Back home I could deadlift about 400 pounds. That is like 180 kilograms. But that was in Earth gravity. Here, with less gravity, probably more." Coach Tarn was quiet for a long moment. "That weight you just lifted. For the other students, that is their maximum effort. For you, it is nothing." "I did not mean to show off," Jake said quietly. "I was just doing what you asked." "I know," Coach Tarn said. "And that is the problem. You are not trying to be scary. You are just being yourself. But to everyone here, you are the strongest thing they have ever seen." Jake felt his eyes getting wet. He was not going to cry. He would not. "I just want to fit in. I just want friends." "Give it time," Coach Tarn said, not unkindly. "Fear is a powerful emotion, but it can be overcome with understanding. The students just need to learn that your strength does not make you cruel." Jake nodded and left the gymnasium. He walked back to his room alone, through hallways that emptied at his approach. When he got to his room, Zeeks was there, packing his belongings into a bag. "You are leaving?" Jake asked. Zeeks would not look at him. "I requested a room change. It was approved." "I am sorry." Jake spent the next 2 days mostly alone. He went to his classes and sat by himself. He ate his meals at empty tables. He walked through hallways that cleared at his approach like he was carrying a disease. Other students whispered about him constantly. The human. The Deathworlder. The monster. Some students were curious enough to watch him from a distance, studying him like a dangerous animal in a zoo. They would hide behind corners and record him on their data pads, analyzing his every movement. Jake pretended not to notice, but it hurt. His teachers treated him carefully, like he might explode at any moment. Professor Nero was kind but nervous. His math teacher, a floating crystal being named Hexar, asked him to please write more gently because his pencil pressure was cracking the datapad screens. His literature teacher requested he turn pages more slowly in his books because the sound startled the other students. Jake tried his best to move softly, speak quietly, and take up as little space as possible. He felt like he was constantly apologizing for existing. On the third day, Jake decided to cook himself dinner. The cafeteria food was not filling enough, and he was tired of protein bars. He had brought some supplies from Earth. Simple stuff: rice, beans, spices, and a small portable cooking unit. He also had a piece of meat in special cold storage. Steak. Real beef from Earth. He had been saving it. But tonight, he needed comfort food. He needed something that reminded him of home. Jake set up his cooking unit in a small kitchen area attached to the cafeteria. The kitchen was meant for students who wanted to prepare food from their homeworlds. It was empty when he arrived. Most students ate the cafeteria food without question. He seasoned his steak with salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. He heated his cooking unit until it was very hot, then placed the steak on it. The sizzle was loud and satisfying. The smell filled the kitchen immediately, rich and meaty and wonderful. Within seconds, students started gathering at the kitchen door. They stared at Jake with wide eyes and open mouths. The smell of cooking meat was apparently something they had never experienced before. "What is that?" a brave Kepler asked. "Steak. Beef. From a cow," Jake said, flipping the meat. "I am cooking it." "You are applying heat to flesh," another student said. "Yeah, that is how you cook meat." "But it was already dead. Why burn it?" "I am not burning it. I am cooking it. It kills bacteria and makes it taste better." More students gathered. The smell was drawing them like moths to a flame. Their expressions mixed horror and fascination. Jake cooked his steak to medium rare, the way he liked it. The outside was browned and crispy. The inside was pink and juicy. He put it on a plate, along with some rice and beans he had prepared. Then he carried his meal into the main cafeteria. Every conversation stopped. Hundreds of eyes followed him as he walked to an empty table in the corner. He sat down, cut a piece of steak, and took a bite. It was delicious. He closed his eyes and smiled. When he opened his eyes, he found at least 50 students standing around his table at a safe distance, watching him eat. The silence was complete, except for the sound of Jake chewing. "Can I help you?" Jake asked. Nobody answered. They just watched. Jake continued eating, trying to ignore his audience. He was almost finished when he heard a commotion near the food stations. A young Kepler named Mira was carrying a tray stacked too high with dishes. She was not watching where she was going. Time seemed to slow down. Jake saw her trip over her own feet. The tray went flying. Mira stumbled forward, heading straight toward a serving station with exposed heating elements that glowed red hot. If she hit those, she would be badly burned. Jake did not think. He just moved. His chair scraped back, his legs pushed off. He crossed the 15 meters between his table and Mira in less than 2 seconds. His hand shot out and caught her mid-fall, gripping her small, furry body gently but firmly. His other hand grabbed the edge of the serving station to stop his momentum. The metal railing bent under his grip with a screech of tortured metal. The sound was loud in the silent cafeteria. Jake carefully set Mira on her feet. "You okay?" Mira looked up at him with huge, terrified black eyes. Her whole body was shaking. Her fur had gone completely white with fear. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then she fainted. Her small body went limp. Jake caught her again, cradling her carefully in his arms. She was so light, maybe 20 pounds at most. The cafeteria erupted in chaos. Students screamed. Dozens of them ran for the exits, pushing and shoving in their panic. Alarm bells started ringing. Emergency lights flashed. Security drones flew in through the doors, their weapons charging up with high-pitched whines. "Freeze, human," a mechanical voice commanded. "Put down the Kepler and step back." Jake was completely confused. She fainted. She needs help. "Put her down now," the security drone repeated. Red targeting lasers painted dots on Jake's chest. Jake very carefully set Mira on the floor. He raised his hands above his head. "I was just trying to help her. She was going to fall into the heating element." More security drones arrived. So did medical staff, small robots that scanned Mira and loaded her onto a floating stretcher. She was carried away quickly. Coach Tarn arrived, breathing hard from running. He looked at the scene, at Jake with his hands up, at the bent metal railing, at the crowd of terrified students. "What happened?" he demanded. 20 students started talking at once, their voices overlapping in a dozen different languages. The translators could not keep up. Coach Tarn held up his hands for silence. "One at a time," he said. A Viridian student named Lysa stepped forward. To her credit, she did not look as terrified as the others. The Kepler student Mira was falling. She would have been injured by the heating element. Jake moved very fast and caught her. He saved her life. He bent the metal railing, another student added, with his bare hand, like it was soft clay. Coach Tarn looked at the railing. It was definitely bent. The metal warped from Jake's grip. He looked back at Jake, who still had his hands up. "Put your hands down, Jake," Coach Tarn said. Jake lowered his hands slowly. Did you intend to harm the student? Coach Tarn asked. No. I was trying to save her. Did you know you were bending the railing? No. I just grabbed it to stop myself. I did not realize how hard I was gripping. Coach Tarn sighed. A long, tired sound. Security. Stand down. This was not an attack. The security drones lowered their weapons but did not leave. They hovered nearby, watching Jake carefully. Headmaster Cora arrived, her crystal body reflecting the emergency lights in rainbow patterns. She surveyed the scene with her compound eyes, taking in every detail. Jake Morrison, she said, her translated voice calm but firm. Please come with me. We need to have a serious conversation. Jake followed her out of the cafeteria. Behind him, students whispered and pointed. Some were crying. Others were already on their communication devices, spreading the story to everyone who had not been there. The human had moved faster than their eyes could track. The human had bent metal with his bare hand. The human was even more dangerous than they had thought. Headmaster Cora led Jake to her office, a quiet room with walls that showed images of peaceful gardens. She gestured for him to sit. He sat carefully in a chair that creaked under his weight. Tell me what happened, Cora said. Jake explained everything. The cooking, the steak, the watching students, and then Mira falling. I just reacted, he said. I saw she was going to get hurt, and I moved. I did not mean to scare anyone. I believe you, Cora said. But Jake, you must understand. To the other students, what you just did was terrifying. You moved at speeds they did not think were possible. You displayed strength that bent metal. And you did it all without apparent effort. Should I have let her fall? Jake asked. Should I have let her get burned? Of course not. Cora said. You did the right thing. But the gap between your capabilities and theirs is causing serious problems. The students are afraid. Some parents are calling to withdraw their children from the academy. The council is receiving complaints about allowing a human student here. Jake felt tears forming in his eyes. I do not want to cause problems. Maybe I should just leave. Cora was quiet for a long moment. Or maybe, she said slowly. It is time we address this fear directly. Jake, would you be willing to give a presentation to the entire academy to explain humanity, Earth, and what it means to be a Deathworlder? You want me to talk in front of everyone? Yes, I think fear comes from not understanding. If the students knew more about humans, about your values and your culture, they might be less afraid. Jake thought about it. The idea of standing in front of hundreds of terrified students was scary. But it was also a chance. A chance to make them understand, a chance to show them that being strong did not mean being cruel. I will do it, Jake said. Jake spent all night preparing his presentation. He sat in his empty room with his datapad, going through pictures and videos from Earth. He wrote notes and deleted them. He practiced talking out loud to himself, trying to find the right words. How could he make them understand? How could he show them that humans were more than just scary Deathworlders? He finally fell asleep at his desk around 3 a.m. When he woke up a few hours later, his neck hurt, and his face had lines pressed into it from sleeping on his notes. He took a shower, got dressed, and tried to eat breakfast. His stomach was too nervous to handle food. The presentation was scheduled for evening, in the main auditorium. Jake spent the day in his room, going over his notes again and again. At one point, Professor Nira stopped by with a small gift, a data crystal containing images of peaceful Earth animals. Show them the gentle parts of your world, she said kindly. Show them that beauty can exist even in dangerous places. At 6 p.m, Jake made his way to the auditorium. The huge building was at the center of the academy, a massive dome that could hold thousands. When Jake entered through the back entrance, he saw that every seat was filled. Students of every species sat in nervous clusters. Teachers stood along the walls. Even Headmaster Cora was there, her crystal body visible in the front row. Jake walked onto the stage. The huge screen behind him lit up with the presentation title he had chosen. Understanding Humanity. In simple letters. His hands were shaking. His mouth was dry. He looked out at the sea of faces, all watching him with fear and suspicion. He took a deep breath and began. My name is Jake Morrison. I am from Earth. I am human. And I know you are all scared of me. The auditorium was silent. You could hear the air recyclers humming. I do not blame you for being scared, Jake continued. Everything you learned about Earth is true. It is a dangerous world. The gravity is heavy. The atmosphere is harsh. The weather is violent. Predators are everywhere. Even the plants can kill you. He brought up an image of Earth from space, beautiful and blue and deadly. Humans did not choose to evolve on a death world. We just did. Every day was a struggle to survive. Every night could bring predators. Every season could bring starvation. Death was always close. More images appeared. Ancient humans hunting with primitive weapons. Humans hiding from storms in caves. Humans fighting to survive. But something amazing happened. Instead of becoming cruel and savage, we learned to work together. We had to. No human could survive alone on Earth. We needed each other. New images now. Humans helping each other. Families gathered around fires. Communities building shelters together. People sharing food. We developed empathy because we needed it to survive. We learned to care for our sick and injured instead of leaving them behind. We created art and music and stories to give ourselves hope. We built civilizations not through violence, but through cooperation. Jake showed images of human art. The Mona Lisa, the Great Wall of China, the pyramids, music scores from Mozart, poetry from around the world. Yes, we are strong. Yes, we are tough. But that is not what makes us human. What makes us human is our choice to be kind, even when we could be cruel. Our choice to help, even when we could harm. Our choice to build instead of destroy. He brought up videos now. Humans rescuing animals from danger. Firefighters saving people from burning buildings. Doctors treating patients. Teachers helping students learn. We learned a saying on Earth, Jake said. With great power comes great responsibility. Because we are strong, we have a duty to be gentle. Because we can hurt, we must choose not to. Because we survived a deadly world, we know how precious life is. The auditorium was still silent, but Jake noticed some students leaning forward now, listening carefully instead of just watching in fear. I want to show you something, Jake said. He brought up a video of a human child, maybe 5 years old, playing with a puppy. The child was laughing, gentle, careful with the small animal. This is a human child with a dog, an Earth predator we domesticated thousands of years ago. Watch how gentle the child is. We teach our children from birth to be kind to things weaker than themselves. More videos played. Humans caring for gardens. Humans protesting to protect forests. Humans working together to clean oceans and save endangered species. Earth almost died because of us, Jake admitted. We were so focused on surviving that we started destroying our own world. But then we stopped. We changed. We decided that being smart and strong meant protecting the weak and preserving beauty, not destroying it. Jake paused and looked out at the audience. Some students were still scared, but others looked curious now, interested. I know I am different from you. I am stronger and faster. I can eat things that would poison you. I can survive conditions that would kill you. But those differences do not make me better. They just make me different. He brought up one final image. It showed humans of all types, different colors, different ages, different sizes, all together. Humans learned long ago that being different is not bad. We look different from each other. We speak different languages. We believe different things, but we are all human, and we all deserve respect and kindness. Jake stepped forward to the edge of the stage. I came to Zenith Academy to learn, to make friends, to be part of something bigger than myself. I did not come here to scare you or hurt you. I came here to show you that even a Deathworlder can value peace. Even a predator can choose gentleness. Even someone strong can be kind. He took a breath. When Mira fell yesterday, I did not think about how fast I was moving or how strong my grip was. I just thought that someone needed help. That is what humans do. We help. Even when it is hard. Even when it is scary. Even when it costs us something. Jake looked at Headmaster Cora. I understand if you want me to leave. I understand if my presence here is too frightening. But I hope you will give me a chance. Give humanity a chance. We are more than our strength. We are more than our dangerous world. We are beings who chose compassion over cruelty, and that choice matters more than any physical capability. He stepped back. Thank you for listening. For a long moment, nothing happened. The auditorium was silent. Jake felt his heart sinking. He had failed. They were still afraid. Then Zix stood up. His former roommate, who had been too scared to stay in the same room with him. Zix stood up in the front row and started making a sound, a high clicking noise. Other Viridians joined in. The clicking spread. Jake realized it was applause, Viridian style. Then Pip the Keplan stood up and started squeaking, and other Keplans joined in. The aerolites made their containment fields pulse with light. Coach Tarn clapped his massive hands together with booming sounds. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on their feet, every species making their own version of applause. The sound was overwhelming, a mix of clicks and squeaks, and booms and chimes, and noises Jake had never heard before. Tears ran down Jake's face. He smiled and waved, overwhelmed. When the applause finally died down, students started approaching the stage. Lysa was first. She climbed the steps carefully and walked up to Jake. I am sorry I was afraid, she said. Would you like to have dinner together? I want to learn more about Earth. I would like that, Jake said. Others followed. Krios asked if Jake would teach him about human music. Pip wanted to know about Earth animals. Even Zix came up, looking embarrassed. I requested my old room back, Zix said. If you will have me as a roommate again. I want to try to overcome my fear. Of course, Jake said. I would like that. Over the next weeks, everything changed. Jake was no longer isolated. Students approached him with curiosity instead of fear. They asked questions about Earth and humanity. They wanted to learn. Coach Tarn asked Jake to help create new training programs. You can show us how to push ourselves safely, he explained. How to be stronger than we think we are. Professor Nira invited Jake to guest lecture in her biology class. He taught the students about Earth's ecosystem, explaining how everything was connected, how even predators served a purpose. Jake started a human culture club. Students came to watch Earth movies, listen to Earth music, and try Earth food. Jake learned to cook gentler versions of human dishes, less spicy and less scary. Though some brave students wanted to try the scary food too, Mira, the Keplan he had saved, became one of his best friends. She was no longer afraid. She said that anyone who moved that fast, just to save someone, could not be a monster. Jake taught self-defense classes, showing students how to be aware of their surroundings and protect themselves. He was always careful, always gentle, adjusting his strength to match theirs. He joined study groups. He played games with other students, carefully controlling his physical advantages. He helped younger students with their homework. He became not the scary human, but just Jake, the helpful guy from Earth. One evening, 2 months after the presentation, Jake sat in the cafeteria with a large group of friends. Viridians, Keplans, aerolites, and species he was still learning the names of. They were all eating together, sharing food from their different worlds. Lysa was trying a small piece of cheese, something Jake had introduced her to. She made a face. How do you eat this? It is so strong. You get used to it, Jake laughed. Everything about Earth is strong, Krios said. But he was smiling. Strong gravity, strong flavors, strong people. We had to be strong to survive, Jake said. But we chose to be kind. That is the important part. Pip nodded. You taught us that strength and kindness are not opposites. That is an important lesson. Zix raised his glass, a toast. To Jake Morrison, who showed us that even Deathworlders can be friends. Everyone raised their glasses and cups and containers. Jake raised his water bottle. To friendship across the stars, Jake said. To learning from each other. To overcoming fear with understanding. They all drank together. Later that night, Jake stood at his window looking out at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, far away but always home. He had come here scared and alone, terrified of being rejected. Instead, he had found acceptance. He had learned that being different was okay. That his strength was a gift, not a curse. That humanity's survival on a death world had taught them valuable lessons the galaxy needed to hear. Headmaster Cora had been right. Fear did come from not understanding. But understanding could be learned. Bridges could be built. Different species could work together. Jake smiled. Tomorrow he had an astrophysics test to study for. He had training with Coach Tarn. He had promised to help Pip with a project. He had a normal, busy student life. He was no longer the terrifying human from the death world. He was Jake, student at Zenith Academy, friend to beings from across the galaxy, proof that compassion could exist anywhere, even in the heart of a predator from Earth. The galaxy had been scared of humans, and maybe they were right to be cautious. Humans were strong and tough and dangerous, but they were also kind and creative and hopeful. They were survivors who chose to build instead of destroy. They were Deathworlders who valued life above all else, and now, the galaxy knew it. Jake had shown them. One human, one academy, one choice at a time. Outside his window, the stars shone bright and welcoming. The future was uncertain, but Jake was not afraid. He had faced the fear of an entire academy and won, not with strength or speed, but with truth and kindness. That was the real human power. Not the ability to bend metal, or run fast or lift heavy things, but the ability to choose compassion even when surrounded by fear. The ability to extend friendship even when met with suspicion. The ability to remain gentle even when possessing great strength. Jake Morrison had terrified an entire alien academy. But more importantly, he had taught them. And in teaching them, he had changed the galaxy's view of humanity forever. The death world, called Earth, had sent its children to the stars. And those children would show the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. Cora's crystal body seemed to glow a bit brighter. Good. We will schedule it for tomorrow evening. The entire academy will attend. Jake. This is very important. This presentation could determine whether humans are accepted in the greater galaxy, or remain isolated as Deathworlders too dangerous to interact with. No pressure then, Jake said with a weak smile. Cora clicked her mouthparts in what might have been a laugh. Prepare well. Show them who you really are. Jake left her office and walked back to his empty room. Tomorrow he would stand before the academy and try to make them understand. He had no idea if it would work. He had no idea if words could overcome the fear his very existence inspired. But he had to try. But I cannot stay here. You are too frightening. I have not done anything to hurt you. I know, Zeke said, his voice sad. But you could. So easily. And that possibility terrifies me. He finished packing and left. Jake sat on his bed in the empty room and put his head in his hands. This was not how things were supposed to go. He had come here to learn, to make friends, to represent humanity. Instead, he had become the monster everyone feared. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. Jake had never felt more alone. I am sorry, Jake said quietly. Professor Nira looked up at him. Her huge eyes were kind. For what, Jake Morrison? For scaring everyone. I did not know Earth was so different. Different is not bad, Professor Nira said. Just different. Give them time. Fear comes from not understanding. Once they know you, truly know you, the fear will fade. Jake nodded, wanting to believe her. He left the classroom and headed toward the cafeteria. It was lunchtime, and his stomach was growling. He did not know that lunch would make everything even worse. He did not know that what he considered normal food would horrify his fellow students even more than the biology lesson had. "You okay, roommate?" Jake asked, turning around. "Fine," Zix squeaked. "I am fine. I just remembered I have to go. Study group. Very important. I will return later." The Viridian rushed out of the room so fast he was almost a blur. The door slid shut behind him, leaving Jake alone. Jake sat on his bed and looked around the room. Through the window, he could see other students moving in the hallways of the tower across from his. They all looked so different, so strange. He wondered if he would ever make friends here. He wondered if he had made a mistake coming to this place so far from home. His stomach rumbled. He grabbed one of his protein bars, tore open the package, and took a bite. Tomorrow would be his first day of classes. Tomorrow he would start learning with aliens from across the galaxy. He smiled, excited despite his loneliness. Jake had no idea that tomorrow would change everything. He had no idea that his simple existence terrified nearly everyone around him. He had no idea that Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. He was just a guy trying to get an education. But to everyone else at Zenith Academy, he was a monster from a nightmare world, and they were all about to find out just how scary a human could be.